What's good, y'all? It's CBH of Suthun Gridiron Darts, and in today's video, we're going over the different zones on the field, including deep pin, safety zone, double zone, no man's land, solid field goal range, red zone, and of course, the end zone. Let's get to it.
All right, so field zones are different parts of the field that may allow or necessitate different throwing strategies depending on in-game situations and your position on the field or the score of the game. And of course, your skill level plays a big role in your strategy during the game. We'll start off with deep pin. Deep pin is when your offensive field position is 30 yards or closer to your own end zone. This is significant because it means you'll have to get at least 50 yards just to get in decent scoring range, which can be difficult against a skilled opponent. Also, you have to be careful of the throws you make because you don't want to set up the defense with good field position or set them up for a solid turnover opportunity by hitting a low number. Usually you want to aim for the safe zones if you do not feel confident in your own skill level, so you can avoid hitting numbers like 5, 1, 3, 2, and 7. Check out my Suthun Gridiron Darts offensive strategy video if you want to learn more about safe zones. Link in the description. So in this example here, the offense hit 20, 5, and 20, allowing the defense to aim for 20, then target a bullseye to force a turnover, since the offense will only potentially pick up 5 yards. Now, if the offense would have picked up maybe 20 yards here, it would have caused the defense to think twice about aiming for the bullseye because the offense still would have the potential to pick up a first down. Now, that was an example of the defender implementing a basic defense, where they can target the bullseye after canceling out a first down. Here is a contained defense being implemented, where the defender is exclusively concerned with negating as many yards as possible to keep the offense pinned deep, forcing a punt from difficult field position. As you can see here, the offense now must punt from their own 19-yard line. So they must hit a long punt or risk setting up the opposition in good field position. You can learn more about defensive strategies in my defensive strategy video in the link below. So as we can see here, as Suthun approaches to punt the ball, they end up hitting 11, which means it's a 33-yard punt, pending the return throw by CD. Now CD approaches the return throw with the opportunity to set themselves up in good field position in Suthun's half of the field as they match the 11 and get a 10-yard return, putting them at the 42-yard line of Suthun, with a chance to put up some points on the board with a field goal or touchdown. All right, now let's circle back to Suthun being back on offense and having the ball in a deep pin position. But this time they're going to implement a big play offense, which once again, you can check out on offensive strategies. So they aim for the bullseye. They're able to hit outer bullseye, which gives them 50 yards pending, and then follow that up with hitting 20 and 11. So now they potentially can have the ball at the 5-yard line of CD. The issue with trying to implement a big play offense in this situation is you're allowing the defense the opportunity to force a turnover by simply matching your bullseye throw, as is done here, which sets the defense up at the 14-yard line of Suthun because they were able to match the outer bullseye throw of the offense. Now, to avoid being pinned deep in their own end of the field, one thing a team can do is aim for a big return after a kickoff or punt throw. So here, CD was able to hit 16, which caused a deep punt where the ball ended up at the 6-yard line. Now Suthun must respond to that punt by trying to escape this deep pin position by hitting the bullseye section, which they do here, which causes a 50-yard return. Now there is a slight problem with trying to implement this strategy. First of all, it's not easy to hit the bullseye section. And if you miss the bullseye section, you're just leaving yourself in an even worse position at being at the 6-yard line. And second, if you're playing at an MVP level, there's only so many response throws you can use to target the bullseye section. You can find out more about that in our advanced rules tutorial in the description below. Now, let's say you're unable to implement a big return and you're left at the 2-yard line of your own side of the field. Being at the 2-yard line, you're now in another zone within the field, which we call the safety zone. The safety zone is 10 yards and in from your own end zone. It's called the safety zone because if the defense is able to force a 5 or 10-yard loss by hitting the trouble or double section, then it ends up as a safety for the defense. as they earn 2 points and you must punt the ball away to them. Due to this risk, and depending on the defensive skill level of your opponent, you may want to just aim for a safe return by trying to get a 10-yard return on a kickoff or punt in this situation when you're deep in the safety zone. This will allow you to start your offensive possession outside of your own 10-yard line, which means the defense has to hit multiple yard losses or multiple trebles and doubles just to cause a safety, which is more unlikely. Now let's move on to the next section of the field, the double zone. The double zone is the area between the 40-yard lines of both teams. It's known as the double zone because this is where hitting a double can maximize the potential of a score. So in this scenario, double 20 was hit, which means it's a 40-yard gain pending defense respond. That's followed up with a 20-yard hit. So essentially, the double 20 set the ball up into the red zone, which the offense was able to capitalize on by hitting single 20, which led to a pending touchdown. We'll get into the red zone later in this video. For now, let's check out another example. Here, Southern on offense is at the 41-yard line of CD. So they target double one and they're able to hit for 21 yards pending, which sets them up in the red zone at the 20-yard line. They follow that up by hitting single 20, which leads to a pending touchdown for the defense to respond. So now if we go back to the prior example of the double 20 being hit followed up by the 20, we can see the issue that this causes for the defense. Because if they aim for double 20 and miss, then it causes a forfeited throw. So essentially, they forfeit their next throw, so they do not get the opportunity to aim for the 20 because they missed the board. And this leads to a touchdown for Southern. This is how the double zone can be useful for a skilled offensive player. Now let's look at a different approach by the defense in this scenario. Because they're scared to miss the board completely, they may lay up instead of trying to really aim for the double one here and just target the 20 to negate the offensive throw or the touchdown. The problem with this is you're automatically giving the offense yards. So now they're already set up in the red zone at the 20-yard line with the opportunity to score a touchdown or at least settle for a field goal. There's another added benefit for the offense in this scenario. If the defense is skilled enough to target the double section and hit that double section, the only thing it actually leads to is a 10-yard loss. Now, of course, you don't want to have a 10-yard loss here, but still that's better than a turnover, and at least your offensive positioning does not end up too deep in your own end of the field, just in case you need to punt the ball. Now, of course, to take advantage of the double zone, you still have to be a player skilled enough to feel confident in aiming for the double section and implementing edge play, which is another offensive strategy. Because if you miss the board completely, you're just setting the defense up for a potential turnover. Now, going for doubles does not have to exclusively occur in the double zone. It's just more effective there. As in this example, the ball is at the 40-yard line of the defense, and the offensive player goes for the double 20, which is a 40 yards pending, and that leads to a touchdown. The issue with this strategy in this circumstance is the defense is going to aim for that double 20 no matter what, because there's not a follow-up throw to negate. So either the defense matches the double 20 or the offense is going to get a touchdown. So this means it doesn't matter if the defense completely misses the board and forfeit the next throw because there's not another throw to be forfeited. So the advantage of aiming for double is not as significant as if there was a follow-up throw to match. Also, another strategic side note for doubles. It's best to aim for the double on the first throw of a set of downs. That's because there are no prior throws before the double that the defense can match, so they can avoid targeting the double section by aiming for a bullseye instead. Okay, so now we're done with the double zone. Let's move on to no man's land. No man's land is the area 31 and 40 yards away from your opponent's end zone. It's called no man's land because you're not close enough to be in solid field goal range, but you're also not far enough away to necessitate a punt. So your decision making here on fourth down will depend on in-game situations, your skill level, your opponent's skill level, or just your inclinations as a dart thrower. Are you aggressive, conservative, or somewhere in between? If you're aggressive, you may challenge the defense with an offensive throw and force them to try to negate it to keep you from getting a first down. If you're conservative, you'll probably just play for the punt and try to force your opponent to drive the length of the field. If you're somewhere in between, but you have good skill, then you probably go for a field goal and try to aim for the bullseye section. Now, your decision making in no man's land will also depend on the in-game situations. So here, we're at the end of the fourth quarter, and Southern is down by 13 points. So that means they need to throw for the first down so they can keep possession and go for a touchdown. If it's late in a half and you just need to put points on the board, then you may just go for a field goal like in this situation with 5 minutes left in the second quarter. Even though hitting the bullseye section may be tough for some, it may be worth the effort just to put points on the board before halftime. And in the final scenario, you may be already leading late in the game. And instead of going for a field goal or first down, you probably want to punt to force your opponent to go the length of the field to try to put points on the board to tie the game or win it. All right, so that's it for no man's land. Let's move on to solid field goal range. Solid field goal range starts from the 30-yard line and closer to your opponent's end zone. It's considered solid field goal range because from this distance, all you have to do is aim for the outer single section if you're in the 16 to 30-yard line range, or the inner single section if you're from the 1 to the 15-yard range. This means it should be easy to put points on the board from this area because those are substantially larger targets than the bullseye section that you'll have to aim for if you're deeper on the field. But similar to no man's land, solid field goal range can present some interesting decision-making circumstances. Like here, Southern is down 3 points with 7 minutes left to go in the game, and they're in solid field goal range. So they can opt to try to tie the game right now by kicking a field goal or go for the touchdown and take the lead. The issue is, if they do try to go for the touchdown and throw some offensive throws, then that means the defense has a chance to knock them out of solid field goal range or create a turnover, as in this scenario right here, where the defense targets and negates the first throw of 20, then aims for the bullseye on the second throw to create the turnover and take over possession. Now, another risk for going for it in this circumstance is the defense doesn't necessarily have to create a turnover. They can actually just simply aim for the treble section and knock you out of solid field goal range, like in this example here. And just to make matters worse in this particular scenario, the defense aimed for inner bullseye on the second throw after the match, which created a turnover for a return and a touchdown. Now that all that is cleared up, let's move on to the red zone. The red zone is 20 yards and closer to your opponent's end zone. It's called that because it's the area of the field where hitting the single section of a number can lead to a pending touchdown, like in this scenario where 20 was hit to lead to a pending touchdown. Being just 1 yard out of this area means that you have to hit the treble section in order to cause a pending touchdown, like here where treble 11 was hit for a 21-yard gain. Now for the defense, being in the red zone after a throw that could lead to a touchdown forces tough decisions to be made. Like here, where 20 has already been matched once, but the offense hit another single 20 to set up a pending touchdown. Now the defense has a decision. Do they go for a bullseye and try to create a turnover, or simply just aim for the 20 section? Me, I would aim for the 20 section here since I already have the lead in this scenario. Problem is, the offense is already in solid field goal range, and it's going to be difficult to keep them from at least getting 3 points and being able to tie the game. That's the significance of being in the red zone. But just being 1 yard further away from the end zone means you're at the 21-yard line and out of the red zone. This means a single 20 won't lead to a pending touchdown, which gives the defense an opportunity to create a turnover if they're able to match the first throw, like here, and they get possession at the 1 yard line. Now let's move on to the final and most significant portion of the field, and that's the end zone. The end zone is the money zone. It's where you score your touchdowns and accumulate 6 points. It's the most important part of the field because that's where you can maximize your points. And if your offense is able to get into the end zone, then you're able to tack on 6, 7, or 8 points, depending on if you go for the 1 or 2 point conversion or miss the conversions entirely. Your ability to get into the end zone could make or break your chances of success at Suthun Gridiron Darts, as 2 touchdowns that accumulate 14 points are worth 4 field goals. And 1 touchdown with a good conversion means your opponent has to get at least 3 field goals just to take the lead. So getting in the end zone is pivotal when it comes to playing Suthun Gridiron Darts. All right, so those are the 7 field zones of Suthun Gridiron Darts: deep pin,
safety zone, double zone, no man's land, solid field goal range, red zone, and finally, and most crucially, the end zone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, stay tuned.